Hello, Internet. Welcome to the Apocalyst review of Onward. As they always say, don't forget to like and subscribe. This was released in 2020 and was directed by Dan Scanlon, who also directed Monsters University. It is officially in the family/animation genre, but I would add that it's also in the fantasy and lighthearted comedy subgenres as well. Actually, on Disney Plus, it's also listed as being a family, comedy, fantasy, animation, and action adventure film all rolled into one. So you might ask, does this bad boy really have all that? I mention that whole list of attributes because the answer is yes, this movie really does incorporate a lot of, and I might even say the best of, many categories. It blends them together in such a clean and well-blended manner that it's like the smoothie of genres. One that tastes so freaking good, you didn't realize your wife snuck in some flaxseed oil and baby spinach leaves and made that scrumptious beast healthy. Delicious and nutritious. Yeah, that's this movie. Good message mixed in so cleanly you didn't see it coming. Check. Fantasy, check. Comedy, check. Heartstrings pulled, check. Family-centric CGI flick for kids that the whole family can enjoy, check. Solid family-oriented film, check. This beastified list is dang near all-encompassing. Holy crap, I just discovered the recipe for a great movie. This is another movie that had a star-studded cast, but since it's animated, you have to look behind the scenes or dig into the credits to see them, unless you're good enough to recognize them by just their voices. Tom Holland stars as the voice of Ian Lightfoot. He has played the role of Spider-Man in movies such as Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and Spider-Man: Far From Home. Chris Pratt stars as the voice of Barley Lightfoot. He starred in movies such as Jurassic World, Guardians of the Galaxy, and acted alongside Tom Holland in Avengers: Infinity War and Avengers: Endgame. Julia Louis-Dreyfus stars as the voice of Laurel Lightfoot, Ian and Barley's mom. Julia Louis-Dreyfus starred in the comedic sitcom Seinfeld, among others. It's really a star-studded cast, but I wanted to call them out as they are the main characters. Even though we can't see them, having well-known actors do voiceovers not only adds an air of legitimacy to a film, but makes it more fun. So, after all that, I have to say, boy oh boy, was this movie a pleasant surprise. I watch a lot of movies, and ones that are this fun don't come along every day. First of all, I love fantasy, and this is rich and kid-friendly fantasy. I'm talking elves, little fairies, manticores, centaurs, as well as ogre and goblin-like creatures. Speaking of centaurs, they're basically horse from the general waist region down, and human from the freaking belly up. This is the closest any character in this movie comes to being a human. The movie's also got magic, a quest of not quite epic proportions, and of course, key items and or treasure that must be collected/fetched, as would be befitting and required of any adventure worth its salt. You catch glimpses of unicorns rummaging through trash cans like freaking garbage pandas, aka raccoons, and people even have pet dragons that are basically this world's equivalent of a dog, and they are way tamer than the Call of the Wild's buck, that I can tell you. Unlike something more mature like The Lord of the Rings, this shouldn't scare any of the children or give them nightmares. Actually, it's got one big downside. It might give kids the wrong impression. It may make them think orc-like creatures are nice and borderline cuddly. Dude, in real life, they'd eat your ace. Yes, oh yes, real life. How many kids may get eaten by orcs and or other monsters because of this? If The Lord of the Rings taught us anything, it's that orcs don't mess around. So yeah, nothing's perfect. Despite being set in a beautiful, fantastic world where magic still exists, you will notice a striking similarity to our own world in terms of technology. In this fantasy land, while their homes may be carved into giant mushrooms, they have modern smartphones, electricity, cars, stoplights, and clothes that look like what someone living on Earth in 2020 would be wearing. The characters even have problems that people in real life have, like trying to fit in and make friends at school. It's like rich fantasy from its head down to its feet, but it's draped in a thinly veiled cloak of modernity. It's this very modernity that has stamped magic into the realm of nearly forgotten myth and legend in this universe. So this is where I'm going to get into spoilers, so spoiler alert, you've been warned. This is the story of Ian and Barley Lightfoot. You quickly learn that their dad died from some unexplained medical complications when they were very young. When we are introduced to Ian, we learn very quickly that he has a dad-sized hole in his heart and clearly yearns to know him. Ian is insecure, awkward, and fairly shy. Barley is the elder of the two elf boys, and he is really into tabletop fantasy adventure games, and we're told he even stages one-man protests to stop the demolition of local historical monuments, which seem to be disregarded as insignificant, rundown relics of the past just taking up space. His mom describes him as not afraid of anything. You even get interspecies relationships as you see an elf is with a centaur, and this elf is the main character's, Ian and Barley's mom, that is, Laura Lightfoot. That's right, the main character's mom is an elf, but their stepdad's a freaking centaur. When he laughs, he sounds like a horse whinnying. When you see Ian go to school, you see a classroom full of pretty much every fantasy species imaginable. Taking examples like these leads one to conclude that this is clearly a progressive and open-minded society that has embraced diversity with loving and open arms. Kind of the fantasy version of what I always pictured the future being in Star Trek, at least before Star Trek Picard came out, which we can talk about at a later time. As a movie introduces you to these characters, you soon find out that it's Ian's 16th birthday. After a tough day and being embarrassed by his brother at school, who makes an outrageous and flamboyant entrance in front of his new friends when coming to pick him up, Ian's mom tells him that she has a surprise birthday present for him. She gets his brother and tells them she has a gift from their dad. Their excitement is nearly palpable. How can this be? What could it be? They slowly remove it from the old cloth from whence it was wrapped, which I like to think was an old wizard's robe, to reveal a wooden staff. A letter is there as well that says once you're both 16 years old, there's a spell they can use to bring him back for one day. If there is any magic in them, that is. Barley, who loves and has a pretty good understanding of how magic works, realizes that this is actually a wizard's staff, but they need a phoenix gem, which their dad also conveniently included. Their minds cave in to the audacity of hope, thinking that they can have a full day with their dad one last time. After hours and hours of reciting the spell included in their dad's letter, Bartley realizes he can't do it and, emotionally exhausted, gives up. But they find out that Ian has the magic spark and is able to work the spell while wielding their dad's wizard staff. Sadly, the inexperience of Ian causes him to lose control halfway through the spell, leaving his dad materialized from the waist down, but nothing but thin air from the waist up. And worst of all, the Phoenix Gem is destroyed in the process. This is where their quest begins. Time is of the essence, as they only get one day from the time the spell starts, and with only his legs or not, time is ticking. Luckily, with all of his fantasy board and card game experience, combined with his knowledge of actual history, Barley knows exactly where to look. The Manticore's lair. For anyone who doesn't know, a manticore is a mythical beast with the face of a human, a giant freaking scorpion tail, big wings, strong enough to fly, and the body of a lion. If you're trying to visualize this, it's important to note in this film that they utilize artistic license and give this creature the face of a lion as well. So basically imagine the beast from Beauty and the Beast, or the Lion King Simba or Mufasa with wings and a big scorpion's tail, and you get an idea of what she looks like. This happens to be a place that is not only referenced in Barley's games, but is based on an actual place that exists in their world. This is where you really start to see that the movie isn't afraid to poke fun at itself either. Barley loves whatever this world's version of D&D is, and not only does he know the nerd fantasy and all associated lore, tropes, and applicable cliches for every situation, he also knows the history of the world he lives in and its magical past. He applies the cliches to every situation they encounter from this point on with a humorous charm. He seems to be one of the only people or magical beings in the whole land who know anything of their magical past. This is an extra layer of irony on top of the fact they are, in fact, all magical beings to begin with, who are completely unaware of the magical properties inherent in their very existence. A freaking elf or unicorn is magical no matter what it's doing, even if it's a unicorn rummaging through the garbage for scraps. Anyways, they get to the tavern, which they see is no longer an adventurer's hangout, but is instead morphed into what appears to be a fantasy version of Chuck E. Cheese's. The place is packed with kids. They ask the Manticore for guidance. While she says she no longer sends anyone on dangerous quests because she doesn't want to get sued and is unwilling to help, they're pleading with her to remember her glory days of adventuring, bring back post-traumatic stress like flashbacks that send her into a rage where she ends up roaring in her customers' faces to get out and burns down her own shop. Luckily, as they dodge smoldering beams and run for their lives through the flames, Ian and Barley are able to acquire a map that points them to a place about half a day away where there is another Phoenix Stone. Since the boys didn't tell their mom they were leaving, yet were considerate enough to leave a note, she quickly pieces together the clues and figures out where they were going. It's not long before she meets the Manticore, who freaks out yet again, saying she forgot to tell the boys about the curse associated with the Phoenix Stone, and if they acquire it, they can be killed. Together, they then embark on a quest of their own to save Ian and Barley. Will they arrive in time to save the boys and help them finish the spell to meet their dearly departed dad, or will the boys meet their untimely doom? Let's find out. The boys overcome many obstacles on their quest, but eventually get to the spot where they believe the stone should be. They are about to meet their dad. Haha, bew! They find that the gem is not actually there, and they have been led in a giant circle right into a construction site near where they started. In despair, Ian takes his dad's legs to go spend their little remaining time together and harshly blames Barley for their failure. Barley, on the other hand, doesn't give up searching and actually finds the Phoenix Gem in an ancient fountain that was about to be demolished. In doing so, he inadvertently unleashes the curse. It is at this time that his mom and the Manticore arrive, just seconds too late to stop him from unleashing the curse. At this time, Ian, now having wandered off alone, save for his dad's legs, of course, starts going through his wish list of things he'd been hoping to do with his old man. As he crosses them off, realizing he'll never get to do them with him, he is struck by an epiphany, and in a stunning twist, realized that he had done all these things with his brother. His brother had been there for him almost like a father figure his whole life, guiding, helping, and teaching him. In short, he had always been there for him. His needs and dreams on his to-do list had actually been fulfilled. He'd just been too blinded by the pain of losing his dad to realize it. Guilt-ridden, and with a newfound love and respect for his brother, he rushes back to the construction site to find Barley. At this time, everything and everyone comes together. The curse manifests itself as a giant dragon and goes after Barley and the gem. Laurel and the Manticore go into attack mode. The Manticore's inner adventurer is reawakened, and she cuts off the cursed dragon's wings before being taken out of commission. Laurel, the boy's mom, goes into Mama Grizzly mode, and like Xena Warrior Princess, stabs the vile beast, but is only able to temporarily stun it before also being knocked out of the battle. Barley then decides to make the ultimate sacrifice for his brother, and goes off to face the dragon in a battle he knows he can't win, as the last line of defense between the dragon and Ian and the gem. Ian, realizing that Barley needs this last chance to say goodbye for closure more than he does, selflessly stops him and says he'll handle the dragon. Using his dad's staff and all the knowledge of magic he's learned on his quest, he is able to slay the dragon and stop the curse. In doing so, he gives his brother one last chance to say goodbye and allowing him to have closure with his dad. Things return to better than normal. Both boys now have a stronger bond and a shared love of magic. Ian, who is now at peace with his dad being gone, gets along better with his centaur stepdad and has more confidence at school. Like in real life, there's good mixed with the sad. But this does a good job reminding us to remember to count our blessings and being sure to not let loss blind us to the good that's right in front of us. And it seems to be telling, above all else, not to forget to enjoy the journey. In other words, the glass is half full. In the end, as a final bit of icing on the cake, you see fairies flying again, centaurs letting their hair loose and using their horse legs to run again rather than driving in cars. It's as if a bit of magic has returned to the creatures of this land, which is the nature of their true selves they'd only forgotten in the depths of modern convenience. It's a relatable movie for me. At times you will cringe thinking about a time your parents or someone embarrassed you in front of classmates at school or some event when picking you up, or are nearly brought to tears when thinking about the heart-wrenching feeling of loss and the hope you'd get thinking of being able to see them again, even for just one day. Certainly we can all relate to a desire for adventure. Seeing the interactions between the elf brothers Ian and Barley is fun and reminds me of my own brother and I when we were growing up together. This movie is lighthearted and fun, with a nice dash of fantasy and adventure, but make no mistake, it's a bit of a sad tale as well if you manage to put yourself in these young elves' shoes. It tugs at your heartstrings in all the right ways in terms of inducing an emotional response, and does so from several directions. I would recommend this for anyone that has even a slight interest in mild animated fantasy with a comedic twist. This gets the Matthew Bursky seal of great for all ages. I'll give it 8.75 out of 10. Keep in mind, this is a movie made for kids in the vein of what you would expect for animated Disney Pixar movies. It's something anyone, especially a family, can enjoy, but may not be what you're looking for if you want something serious or geared towards adults. This is the Apocalyst review of Onward. Thanks for watching.